everyone, this is Suprava. Welcome back to another session with me. In today's session, we will be discussing about hydrocephalus, which we have already started in a different session where we discussed about the definition of hydrocephalus, what are the different types, what is the normal pathway of the CSF flow, and what are the causes of hydrocephalus and the clinical manifestations, and also the diagnostic measures. So in today's session, we would be focusing on the management part. So we would discuss about the management of hydrocephalus. So before starting our today's session, I would like to suggest you to refer the first part of the video where we have discussed the most of the topic so that you can understand it in more better way. Now, today we would be learning about the management. So first, let us start with the medical management. So here in medical management, what is our goal? Now we know that there is increased intracranial pressure, right? And because of that, there will be certain complications. So our first goal would be to reduce that increased intracranial pressure, right? So the first goal is reducing the intracranial pressure, and we have to next, we have to prevent and manage the complications. So we have to prevent any sort of complications, and even if there is any complications that had happened, that we have to manage. Also, because of this, because of this condition, because of this pathology, there will be certain problems. There would be, symptoms, right? So we would do symptomatic management also. So we have to make sure that we manage these symptoms also. So that is our goal. Now in medical management, we basically use diuretics. So osmotic diuretics and loop diuretics. So these would, reduce the CSF production, and if we can reduce the CSF production, then we can, the accumulation can be reduced, because we already learned that there can be either there can be problem with the reabsorption, or there can be problem with the production, right? So sometimes mostly it is actually there would be overproduction, or there would be some blockage. So in that case, we can reduce the production. So if there is reduced production of CSF, then there won't be problem with even if there is problem with the reabsorption, then we can manage that, right? So here what we do is that we provide diuretics to the child, like osmotic diuretics or loop diuretics, and with that we reduce the CSF production. This is a temporary management, and for this we actually have to do surgical management. So next, let us move on to the surgical management. Now in surgical management, we basically use a shunt. So in surgical management of hydrocephalus, we would in all the techniques, we would see that there would be usage of shunt. Now what is this shunt? So it is it is made up of a radioplastic, and it has ventricular catheter, it has a pressure valve and a pumping chamber, and a distal catheter that directs the flow of the CSF from the ventricles to the other areas of the body where it can be absorbed, right? So what we basically do in surgical management, we divert the flow of the CSF, right? So as we have problem with the absorption, or it might be that there is overproduction of CSF, what we would do, instead of leaving it there and getting accumulated, we basically divert the flow. So whatever is excessive there, whatever accumulation is there, we with the help of this shunt, what we do, we direct the flow of the CSF from the ventricles to the other parts of the body where the CSF can be absorbed. And then there is endoscopic third ventriculostomy. So this is basically an alternative procedure to shunt surgery, and in this procedure, this procedure involves making a hole in the floor of the brain, and that would allow the trapped CSF to escape to the surface of the brain. So there it can be absorbed. Now we would see what are the shunt surgeries that are there, right? Well, the first one is ventriculoperitoneal shunt, right? Now here you can understand from the name itself that this is between the ventricle and the peritoneal cavity, right? So here again we have three chambers, so three structures we can say. The first one is ventricular catheter, which goes into the brain, and the second part is the valve. Now this would control the pressure inside the brain, right? And the third part is the distal catheter. Now this distal catheter would be, which would be underneath the skin, and it would, connects the other parts of the VP shunt to a space within the body, and specifically to the peritoneal cavity where it can be absorbed. And then we also have ventriculoatrial shunt. So a ventriculoatrial shunt is also called as a vascular shunt. And again, from the name itself, you can understand that this is between a ventricle and the atrium, right? So here, this shunts the cerebral ventricles through the jugular vein and the superior vena cava into the right cardiac atrium. And then there is also lumboperitoneal shunt. Now this is used only if there is communicating hydrocephalus, or if there is CSF fistula or pseudomotor cerebri. Only in these cases, lumboperitoneal shunt is used. And then there is also one more thing which is called as ventriculopleural shunt. Now this is a second line surgical management. So if all the other shunt types are contraindicated, in that case only they go for ventriculopleural shunt. And other than all these surgical interventions, there is also one more thing called as choroid plexectomy. So this is also one more surgical intervention. Next, we would see what are the warning signs of a VP shunt that is not working. So what are the signs that that would indicate us that the VP shunt is not working? So there would be a headache which would increase over time, and also there might be vomiting without feeling of nausea, and there would be changes of personality. And then again, there might be swelling of the skin that runs along the path of the VP shunt. And there might be certain vision problems also. For example, there might be blurry vision or double vision. So next, let us move on to the nursing interventions. So the first thing is we have to explain the family about the management required for the disorder, right? So you have to explain that what is the problem, and why it is happening, and what are the possible interventions that are there. And if the child is going for surgery, then you have to provide pre-operative care, and also along with that you have to assess the head circumference, you have to assess the fontanelles, the cranial sutures, and if there is loss of consciousness. Also, you have to check for irritability, and if there is altered feeding habits, and if there is high-pitched cry. So mostly if the child has hydrocephalus, in that case they would have high-pitched cry. And you have to educate the family members, and also whenever you hold the child, you have to very firmly support the head and the neck when holding the child. Then you also have to provide skin care to maintain the skin integrity, so that there is no breakdown of the skin, and you have to give small and frequent diet to prevent vomiting. And you also have to provide the post-operative nursing care. So for example, you have to assess for signs of increased ICP. So for that you have to check the head circumference daily, and you also have to check the anterior fontanelle size. And then you also have to provide shunt care. So basically you have to monitor the shunt for, if there is shunt infection or if there is malfunction. And you can also, educate the family members and explain them how to recognize the signs and symptoms of increased ICP. So these are some of the nursing interventions. Now moving on to the complications. So in complications, there can be seizure. So as we know that there is, the increased intracranial pressure, and the brain structures would also get compressed, and there would be, it would also get damaged, right? So because of that, there might be abnormal electrical discharge. So that would result in seizure. Again, there can be herniation of brain. And then there might be persistent increased intracranial pressure, and also there might be developmental delay and depression. Well, so this was all about hydrocephalus. So today we discussed about the management and the complications. So I hope you have got a better insight about the topic. Thank you.